Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ultimate Ransomware Survival Guide. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at phoenixNAP. And with me today, I got my buddy, Michael Deemer, Inside Systems Engineer at Veeam. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me, William.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right in, everybody. For those of you that are not familiar with PNAP, we are a global infrastructure as a service company. We've got data centers all around the globe. We're delivering Veeam-powered services out of 6 or 7 of those locations today. And today we're going to talk a lot about data protection, information security, ransomware specifically. I hope it'll be an engaging chat for everybody. I really do want everybody to, throw the questions in. I'll try to answer them live if I can while we're chit-chatting. But other than that, I will go ahead and just kind of get rolling. So some of you may know this already, but imagine that probably most of you don't. But ransomware is causing extreme financial distress throughout the global economic system, right? They are predicting $20 billion in losses just in 2021 alone from ransomware. $20 billion, and that's an annual aggregate figure, right? So when you look at that number probably going to 25 billion in 2022 or greater, I think that from an information security perspective, from a perspective of someone who is, in charge of the technology services at a modern enterprise, I would look at this as one of the greatest existential threats that the everyday business faces. If you have critical information that some nation state actor wants, we've seen a lot of that in the news the last couple of days with SolarWinds and FireEye and some of these things, then yes, you have serious security concerns that are probably daily in nature that you have to worry about. But for a lot of you, the businesses that you're driving technology for, you may just be trying to keep the technology components alive to produce a good. Maybe some manufacturer, maybe you're making clothing, maybe you're, doing oil, exploration. I don't know, but ultimately, business disruption can be the biggest problem for you and ultimately lead some organizations to want to pay significant amounts of money to protect or to ensure that they can continue their business. And for a lot of people, ransomware can mean a potential end of business operations. So, I think we're going to talk a lot about kind of why it makes it such a big deal, but it's something that if you're not focused on today, you need to start focusing on as you work on your 2021 security plans, as you work on as you work on your next kind of 5-year plan, making sure that you have immutable copies of your data that are protected from ransomware attack, even if you are leveraging endpoint protection or something like that to just try to fight off ransomware as it might exist in your organization. The average attack on a business costs $133,000, and that's like all businesses, right? That's not just some giant business. It costs large businesses much more than that. We've seen examples of folks like City of Atlanta. I think they estimated $20 million in loss from the ransomware attack that they had. That's just an insane number from where I sit for a city. But they had compromised so many different critical systems. It took forensics investigations and huge investments, and they were fined by various agencies for not having their critical information protected. So I think that when you look at that kind of incident and you look at the downtime and future lost business, total loss, right? That number can climb up to 800,000 and or millions and millions of dollars. So, you know, I think that's huge. And some might say, oh, well, I can just pay the ransom. A lot of people are hit with $10,000, $20,000 demands, right? I'll just pay the ransom and I'll get my data back. That's not true either, right? We at PNAP heavily recommend that users don't pay ransom because how the attacker got in your system is likely not fixed. And if you pay ransom, even if you get your data back temporarily, the likelihood that you're going to get compromised again is so crazy high that ultimately you have to work on ensuring that you've got processes in place to make sure you don't have to pay. 50% of organizations that pay the ransom ultimately don't get to recover their files. Even I've heard situations, even when they are given the key and the bad actor, you know, is trying to give them the password to unlock that critical system or critical set of systems. Sometimes damage is done by the encryption process and the data is corrupt. Other times, you know, they could have changed the password and forgot it. I mean, there's just nightmares of scenarios that have occurred over the years, along with just the average guy that basically says, you know, the attacker that basically says, you know, I'm just not going to give it back even though you paid the ransom. So with 65% of these attacks arising from phishing, I mean, you know what's occurring here. You understand, hopefully, when phishing is the kind of leading you know, infiltration point, that your users are the ones that are your most vulnerable. So you got to do something to protect them. Coronavirus has brought intense pressure on organizations to secure their data in a multitude of ways, right? It's the proliferation of data, and we're not going to talk about COVID so much on this call as a focus point, but it is the you know, the data proliferation. It's being sent to users' homes. A lot of folks are operating on, you know, in computers that are not blessed by an organization or through some type of central IT provisioning. VPNs are a mess. There's so many issues that are occurring. You know, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So, you know, I think that you know, we're in a position where we have to start considering what we're going to do, you know, to kind of get your way out of that. So as you look at the rest of the things that we're focused on as an organization and helping customers through, the biggest change that we've seen, I guess, in the what's the word I'm looking for? The biggest change that we've seen in the landscape is this rise of ransomware as a service. No longer do you have to be an expert hacker to infect someone with ransomware. You're actually able to subscribe to services that, I kid you not, deliver you a fully functional ransomware as a service platform that you can use, or attackers can use, to infect target businesses. And it's everything: automated phishing, exploitation, the ransom process, how to get payment. All those things, right, are basically you know, kind of put at a person's disposal, right? So it's not just for the experts anymore. It truly isn't. So I feel like, you know, it's something where organizations have to do a better job of figuring out how they're going to protect themselves from these types of attacks. So what does this look like? What does this look like for you, right? this looks like a real email. Your users are seeing these phishing attacks that are basically bringing the malware into your environment. They're seeing them as legitimate kind of attacks, or sorry, as legitimate emails that are coming in. And I've seen everything. I've seen, you know, the CEO fraud. I like this one. You know, the message from the CEO that says you need to do this thing. You need to click on this link right now because otherwise our business is going to be in jeopardy, right? I've seen everything you can think of on this list, but ultimately, a lot of times it's really basic, right? It's a bank account email, it's a UPS link, it's a FedEx link, and you know, you could do some things. You can have your users be diligent about the emails that they're getting and the people that are you know, sending those emails. This PayPal-Australia.com.au, that's not PayPal, right? And sometimes it's more complex than that. I'm not saying it's always easy. Bad grammar is usually a telltale sign for me. You'll see emails with just abhorrent grammar. Those are probably some type of phishing attack. And then any of the links that are in the email, any of the links, hovering over them will reveal the ultimate link that it's trying to send you to. And I really don't recommend clicking on anything in emails. You know, look for the link, copy the link, put it into a browser, you know, paste it in, inspect what you're doing, and then decide whether or not you want to click on it or go there. And for things like PayPal, you know, I would say go to the website to do whatever activity you would like to do at that point, not through a challenge type response from a purported sender. So someone asked if the slides are going to be available. Absolutely, we are going to make these slides available for everyone. So no issues there. And hopefully you guys can use some of this stuff internally and repurpose it. So what can you do, right? We've started talking about the problem, right? There's all kinds of problems. But what can you do to protect your users, to protect your data? And ultimately, we're going to talk about the most important thing you can do in backup and data protection. But you can enforce strong passwords. You can enable two-factor or multi-factor authentication. And I still recommend this. You guys can go read about it, but there was some very novel attacks against two-factor authentication that took place during this whole SolarWinds FireEye bad actor debacle. And so it's not even, multi-factor authentication is not going to be the end all be all either, but it's a huge step in the right direction. It absolutely can help protect your environment from a major issue and stop 98% of the attackers that are out there pretty easily. Network segmentation. We're doing a webinar in January about zero trust network segmentation. Be on the lookout for that. For your most critical systems, you have to bring some type of critical system network segmentation to bear, because ultimately ransomware will just run rampant through your environment. If it gets in, it will just run rampant. And so, you have to make sure that somebody's desktop can't compromise your critical email server or whatever, CRM or whatever you have internally that's super important to you. Phishing training is probably one of the most important things you can do to prep your users. Our organization goes through once a quarter full-scale phishing exploration, right? And our users are tested against really sophisticated attacks, and email-based phishing attacks. And it's made us a better organization. It's made our users a little more paranoid about how they use their email, enough to make a real difference. So I highly suggest it. I think hopefully most of you have started to have deployed some type of detection mechanism by now, right? When you look at antivirus and anti-malware, mostly these days, those are detection mechanisms. It's probably not going to stop the thing that is going to infect your 1 or 2 computers, but especially if you get in some more advanced systems that have like network behavioral analysis and things like that, they can start to pick up that something bad has gone wrong, right? Something bad has occurred and you have to do something about it. So yeah, I wouldn't rest on it being able to just completely eliminate malware. There are ways. I mean, I'm not going to belabor them too much, but for absolutely critical systems that have a single function, there are ways to lock down a system to ensure that only known good executables are run. And when you do those types of things, there are terms you can Google like binary whitelisting or certificate execution authorization. There are things you can do to help get in front of that kind of thing. But yeah, they're also very, very difficult to implement would be the word I would use. So something to think about. All right. So what do we recommend, right? We recommend a clean copy of your critical data. And there are multiple ways to accomplish this, right? The kind of Cadillac option is some type of consistent disaster recovery with a snapshot or some type of consistent copy of your data that is time-based and allows you to go back in time and run data, run your infrastructure in another location that can be isolated from other things and kind of locked down. Maybe you can turn off your VPNs. You can do all kinds of things that can help stop the spread of the malware again. That's kind of your top tier solution, and ultimately it has a lot of applicability other than ransomware and anti malware. So you can get a lot of bang for your buck from full-scale disaster recovery as a service implementation. But the thing you have to do is back up your data. Data protection formed in a very specific way provides you the most intense protection against things like ransomware. And when I say backed up in the right way, it means having a clearly defined recovery point objective that says, okay, I know that if I lose 4 hours of data, things are gonna be okay. My business will continue and I will not be in a lurch. And it has to be stored somewhere that is protected from malware. For some people, that can be a air-gapped copy, tape, which I don't really recommend, NAS devices that are disconnected and only connected when a backup job is running. There are ways, but the most common new kind of technology that's out there is immutable copies of data through technologies like Worm, which is a write once, read many file system technology. And these immutability features that we're supporting now, that Veeam supports, these immutability features truly provide you with an assurance that once that backup is written to this destination, it is not modifiable. Period. End of story until the policy says otherwise. And so we have an object storage technology that supports this immutability capability. We are looking at some other types of storage capabilities that will provide some users that have different implementations with an ability to take advantage of this. But yeah, just rest assured that that's kind of the key. And Veeam has a ton of other ways that are not service provider oriented to accomplish this on your own. Michael's going to talk a little bit about that. And with that, I will give it over to Mike and take it away, man, and tell us what Veeam has to offer.
Sweet. Thank you very much, William. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Deemer, systems engineer here for Veeam Software. And I just kind of want to go over the Veeam side of the house. And William said a lot of good information today, all the way from talking about the monetary value that ransomware can be devastating to your guys' companies to all the way to how to fix some of these gaps, right? But the overlying gap that we're trying to fill is making sure that you have backup and a disaster recovery as a service or some type of failback point to make sure that you're good. So going back, let's just kind of talk about some of the really good things that William brought up was ransomware as a service, which is getting crazier and crazier just the more that time has gone on. It's something that I kind of researched here on my own, and it has gained so much popularity from, I want to say, like 2019 Q1 to today in Q4 of 2020. There's just a lot of people that are actually going at that particular ring. Now, let's talk about some of these rules. Some of the big rules that at least Veeam has and that you'll hear kind of the gamut or the backup gamut you'll hear is a lot of the times is a 3-2-1 rule. So 3-2-1, we'll kind of break it down here very simply. And this is basically talking about how we should keep your backups, where we should keep your backups, and how to make sure that you guys can get back up and running in a timely, efficient manner, and making sure that you have a golden ticket or the golden key at the end of the day. Now, on the left-hand side here, we have 3 different copies of your data. All of them do say VBK, so that is the normal format of taking an actual active full. So those are going to be your formats. So 3 different copies. You have A, B, and C. Now, we have 2 different types of media, whether that be tape or spinning disk, or tape and another location, NVMe drive, some type of different media types, right? And then the biggest one, and that's going to go really into the last one, is having one off-site. So having one at phoenixNAP or having one off-site at a different location. It is going to be mission critical for something like this. That way, everything can go off smoothly, and you, again, have that golden key at the end of the day. Even if something locally gets compromised, you still are able to come in and save the day. Now, that off-site location could be a data center, it could be the cloud, it could be, like Iron Mountain for tape. It could be a whole slew of different things. But again, that's really what I really want to drive home on this slide is making sure that we have a lot of different places for your data, and most importantly, having one off-site. And the last one you'll see there is 0. So 0, basically saying, if we don't have that, we're going to have, or if we have that, we're going to have, the availability to have just no ransomware be able to get in there and be able to wreak havoc, right? And that's not what we want. We don't want ransomware to be, or that exploit to win at all. We want to make sure that we can go back to point in time state, revert that, and then go back and actually get some security individuals involved, so we can start to master or button up what's actually been going on. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about real-time ransomware. So I'll kind of show you what it will look like in real time, but I want to kind of break this slide down just a little bit before we get into it. All right, so left-hand side, I'll work from the left to the right. The left-hand side, you're going to see some virtual machines. Those could have your databases, applications, files, data stores, all that kind of good stuff. That's stuff that's actually running on those virtual machines. Then you have your hypervisor, and then we have either, our actual storage, whether that be HP, Nimble, NetApp, EMC, storage, snapshot, or just data domain and CD Boost. Really doesn't matter there, just kind of very generic overlay of the architecture. What we'll see here is that little Veeam box off to the right. That's going to be Veeam backup and replication. So let's kind of look at what happens in real time, how ransomware could hit. All right, so let's kind of look at this. So you're going to be able to see that all the virtual machines and the local storage is now no good, right? Now, what are the next corresponding steps for when this stuff happens? Well, good thing you have Veeam in mind here and that we're actually doing this. The very first thing that we need to start thinking about is creating an on-demand sandbox. What is an on-demand sandbox? Let's take a little bit of a step back there. Basically what it is it spins up your virtual machines in a Linux appliance that's only spun up during the sure backup or the sandbox version of that particular window. What does this allow it to do? It segregates the network. So as soon as you mount the backup in there, it starts spinning up. It has no network access to go and wreak more havoc inside of that environment. It's completely segregated, and it's all on its own. And then we can start to do some really cool stuff inside of there, looking for different things that we might be able to find, and that's really going to be the big key, is making sure that it's somewhere that is in a separate environment that's not going to continue to wreak havoc. That's exactly why we don't have any network access. There would be no point to have a sure backup lab or a data or an on-demand sandbox lab if it had internet access, because then it can just go through the V-switch and go right back out and phone home to its ransomware servers, telling what it's found. So no good. All right, but let's actually kind of take another step here, right? So as you see down there, we're going to actually create the on-demand sandbox, which I was just kind of talking about, and then you're going to be able to start to use the sure backup or automated testing to make sure that these VMs are good. So once that you find a point in time state that we're good to, that matches either your RPO or RTO, we can actually revert back to those and then start mounting that good image version, and then kind of go back into production. And then really the first thing that you really should do after you go back into production is really start to look at all those security flaws and start to button up everything so that it's not going to happen again and just over and over and over again. All right. So the next thing I really want to talk about is recovery from storage snapshots. Recovering from storage snapshots is really, really cool. Why do we talk about storage snapshots? Well, one, this is a very, very good way to get a very good piece of granular data. And what I mean by that is you'll see at that first line. So let's just pretend that you're just doing a normal backup. You take a nightly at 8 p.m. and then you also do another one a little later in the night as well. So those are your two basically point in time states. So you can either go back to 8 a.m. or you could actually go over to 8 p.m. on the other side, right? Now, if you're doing storage snapshots, which Veeam can do and the Veeams can leverage, we're just going to take a snapshot for however often you want that to be done. If you want it to be done every hour, we could do it. We can, again, get very granular inside that. But the most common way is you do see a snapshot every hour, going back and only losing an hour's worth of data compared to a whole 8-hour period of data doing it the regular way. Now, kind of moving down here, we also just kind of want to talk about some of our explorers. Explorers are basically how we get our data back out. We have stuff for Exchange, we have stuff for Active Directory, SQL, SharePoint, and Oracle. These full explorers are how you actually get the granular resource out of those particular databases or applications. All right, cool. So that's going to be the storage snapshot side. Very, very cool there. Really what I want to talk about next is going to be the actual, what it looks like to restore from ransomware. So I kind of showed you a little earlier what ransomware looks like if it was to happen, and then we can do share backup to kind of mitigate that. But let's also go over some other restore options that we actually have through Veeam. So let's actually kind of look at this. So on the left-hand side here, you'll see again, you have your hypervisor, virtual machines up top, and then you have your Dell Data to Boost and HP Store 1. These are very generic, right? These are all just the ones that we integrate with. Now, next is actually going to be what happens. So here are some of the options that we have for quick restores or just restoring overall. So we can do a couple different things here. So one, we can actually reach out right to the storage, get this particular snapshot that we're looking to get, and then go and mount that, right? Or we can actually go up here and just get the granular file. So if you just wanted something very granular from these particular machines, you could go and grab that as well. Again, it's very derivative and dependent on what you guys are trying to get back and trying to restore, but I'm just showing you all the different options that you have. You could either do the full VM, you could just come down and get the snapshot from an hour, 2 hours ago, 5 hours ago, however often, or you could just go up and actually get the application. Really kind of dependent on what you're needing and whatever the needs of the company is at that particular time. Now, again, we can run from a storage snapshot. We can restore from a secured backup location. So if you actually wanted to, here, let me for this slide one more, a little build out here. We could actually do it from like tape, or what I like, you could actually pull it back from like phoenixNAP if you need it, right? So if you have that third location or an off-site location and you need to bring that copy back, you know that it's off-site, you know that they have an immutable storage, right? So it's worms, write once, read many. I can't tell you the amount of times since I would say Q1 of this year to the end of this year, the amount of clients that have switched from just your standard object storage over to an immutable storage because of worm and the kind of the peace of mind that you get with that particular type of storage array. I can't stress that enough of how much that particular segment has grown. Very, very good. And then the last one, of course, is if you had an offline media or some type of tape device. So you could go back and have, you know, Iron Mountain or any type of one of those guys ship you back the tape, you know, put it on a bare metal server, go up and mount it. It is a little more of a longer process, right? Because you got to have the shipping and all that involved. But at the end of the day, it's still a golden key, and it's still going to be huge for making sure that you guys can get back up and running. So that's really what I wanted to drill home today. I'm going to be passing this back over to William. He's going to be able to give off the rest of this amazing webinar here for you guys. And thank you guys very much.
Awesome, Michael. That was great. Thank you so much for joining us today and leading us through some of the technologies that Veeam has to kind of help with ransomware and honestly just a million different data protection kind of use cases. They really are the leader in data protection, especially in this kind of multi-cloud world, and we're excited to be one of Veeam's top tier partners. Yeah, so anybody who's a Veeam customer, if you've been or not a Veeam customer who's been considering Veeam, couldn't recommend it more highly.
Thank you, Blaine.
Now we're gonna move on here. And so how does Veeam and PNAP fit together, right? Like, so what does this mean for you? So maybe you're a Veeam customer and you are looking for some type of offsite data protection that Michael was talking about. phoenixNAP has integrated solutions that are also powered by Veeam. Think of it as like a smart target in the cloud. Ways for you to connect your Veeam environment to a environment in the cloud, leverage cloud infrastructure resources, but still have smart data processing happening as part of that experience. Not just storage, right? It's not just storage in the cloud. There's true kind of smart processing on the other side that allows you as the end user with your Veeam console to do very granular restorations and data manipulation and exploration of those offsite repositories. So I think that's kind of a really solid solution. Yeah, so somebody had asked whether or not the sure backups are immutable copies of your backups. They are not by default. The sure backup is a technology that allows you to kind of, rehydrate the data. I don't know if that's the right word, but it allows you to bring that data up and actually experience it and use it like it you would have it in production and kind of test out the backups. That is more like a workflow type technology. It can leverage immutable storage, which is a file system protection, right? It's something that has to be specifically supported by the target of storage that you're writing to take advantage of. So I think that is something. And then, he asked, where do you set the worm in Veeam? You don't really do it in Veeam. There's a way to set the mutability flag. But again, ultimately the storage array that you're writing to, whether it's in the cloud or it's on-prem, has to support that write once, read many capability. Yeah, so there are some ways, Mike, maybe you want to jump in and talk about that. You guys are adding some kind of KV articles and support for Linux-based repositories with immutability soon, or already have?
Yeah, absolutely. So right around the corner is going to be V11, which is going to be kind of taking over from V10. And that's going to be coming with an immutable XFS, which is going to be Linux repository. So instead of going off to a cloud to get the actual immutable, you can actually stick it on-prem and have an immutable copy of your data locally. That's going to be very, very turnkey, but it's going to be only on Linux repositories as of right now, no Windows or Nutanix or anything like that.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the other thing that we do with Veeam is we provide for actual disaster recovery replication. So you can replicate your data from on-prem to a cloud-based service and be able to spin it up live in the cloud in the event of a disaster. A disaster in this case can also include ransomware, which is kind of one of the kind of the chief components that I think is worth talking about. All right, so let's jump. Oh, and by the way, that's only supporting vSphere today. So just for vSphere customers, unfortunately, if you're doing Hyper-V, we don't support disaster recovery replication to Hyper-V. Okay, so the best part of Veeam and PNAP is it is absolutely pay as you go, right? So you can bring us the data, you can pay for what you use, you can get better pricing for committing, but ultimately it is and can be pay as you go. So you are still paying for what you use. There are term commitments to get better pricing and things like that. 24/7 support, right? 24/7 support that gives you, access to our engineers and allows you to get any type of help you need with offsite data protection or with Veeam itself. Will absolutely help kind of work with Veeam to find answers to different solutions and things like that. So not a problem there. And then instant recovery. I think that's the one thing that is some of the most important part of this is in the event of a disaster, if you are replicating using Cloud Connect replication, you can start instantly recovering with very, very little downtime. So I think that's really kind of driving home some of the advanced or more advanced capabilities that we have with Veeam directly integrated in the console that you're using on-prem every single day. All right. We've got a myriad of other capabilities and technologies. We've been working over the last 2.5 years to build what we think is one of the most secure cloud computing environments on Earth. It actually includes Veeam backups for all the VMs that are hosted in that environment by default. We don't even let you occupy the environment without a backup. A ton of other data security and compliance capabilities kind of sit around that. We talked about Cloud Connect, we talked about disaster recovery, and the last one that's been really, really crazy lately is Office 365 backups. Our teams can actually take the burden of backing up Office 365 data. Mike and I have done a ton of webinars about why you should do that. There's a lot of data out on the internet that you can Google about why it's important for you to have a copy of your Office 365 data and why Microsoft isn't taking care of that for you. But we're now able to get everything, and in most recently, Microsoft Teams in a more granular format with the launch of Managed Backup or Office 365 Backup version 5 from Veeam. So yeah, I think that's a lot of amazing capabilities at everyone's disposal. So I'm going to toss up, my marketing team wants me to throw this poll. I'm going to put it out there. If you want to learn more, say yes. We will, give you a demo. We'll show you, run you through the paces of what that would look like to do disaster recovery in the cloud. Aside from that, I hope that this was educational, right? We do this to educate people. We do this to bring to light problems that exist in the market today and give you real tangible solutions around them. I'm in technologies that were not Veeam specific or PNAP specific. You know, I truly think that there are so many different ways to ensure that you're protected from major issues. Don't turn your back on ransomware. It will get you if you do, because it's so easy to accomplish. It really drives home this, you know, almost the criminalistic side of it, right? It's truly just like kidnap for ransom. It's easy to execute. It's anonymous as hell, and people are making real money off of doing it. So, you know, for sure. I'm gonna leave this up for just a second more while everybody gets their votes in. And I'm gonna shift over to some questions. Let's see if we have any other questions. I answered a bunch of questions while we were going. If anybody wants to throw out another question, that would be good. I talked a little bit about multi-hypervisor, right? The DR thing is the only thing that's VMware specific from a PNAP Veeam perspective today. You know, Veeam supports a ton of different hypervisors, you know, Nutanix, Microsoft, Hyper-V, and VMware. They also have Veeam agents now that can do a ton more, cloud-based data protection, AWS data protection. The good thing about that from a backup perspective is all that is stored in a common file format, the Veeam backup file, right? And that file can be copied to a Cloud Connect repository. The only difference is you might not be able to spin it up if you don't have a compatible environment. One of the things we do for Hyper-V users is we actually will allow customers to take that backup, stick it there, and then we can spin up hardware that you can license and you can put Hyper-V on, and you can kind of, that's a slower process, but that is available. There's only a few providers out there that offer Hyper-V native disaster recovery as a service, but yeah. So I encourage everybody to look at that and go from there. Okay, I will shut this down. Thanks everybody for taking the time and voting. Let's give it just one more second for any more questions. Container workloads. All right, Mike, do you want to jump on that from a Veeam perspective real quick, and then I'll talk a little bit about kind of what we're looking at for containers.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the actual workload side, we're actually going to be able to kind of help out as well. So this has kind of been new to the market in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5-ish years. I kind of seen it come in. And this was, you know, and I still feel like this is going to be, you know, the virtual machine killer eventually at one point or another. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but I do see it a lot for DevOps. And yeah, Veeam's able to protect it with Kasten, and Kasten's one of our products that we can actually go out and get those particular containers and those particular workloads backed up, and making sure that we can actually go back and revert back to them. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he mentioned Kasten. I think it's a great technology. You know, we're looking at ways to kind of integrate with some of that as we go forward. You know, containers has brought an even broader diversity, I guess you would say, to the data protection landscape and to the cloud provider landscape. You know, whereas I think that, you know, when it's kind of crazy to think, but you know, when everybody was for the most part running VMware or Hyper-V and running virtual machines, and then there were providers that had basically supported those technologies, life was much simpler. In the container world, all the hyperscalers have their own containerization implementations. There are ways to basically board into native versions, and in some of them with the ECS versus EKS in Amazon, and AKS in Azure, and GKS in Google. But the data protection side of that is still kind of weird and proprietary, and Kasten's done a lot of really good work to normalize that and make it easier for folks. So yeah, I highly think that everyone should take a look at that. And I don't know who, the asker wasn't clear on who that was, but I'll mention for the person that talked about containers that, everybody is hopeful that Paston will be rolled into Veeam in a very native way in the future. That's not something that's here, but obviously everybody's going to desire one data protection technology to take advantage of, and we will keep everybody up to date as soon as that is available. All right, I think that was it from a questions perspective. Thank everyone so much for coming. I hope you found this educational. There are handouts in the GoToMeeting platform that everybody can download this. I believe that the slides are in there. There's a webinar on the DRaaS as a service capabilities and the greater phoenixNAP stuff. Michael, thank you so much again. I hope you have a happy holidays, and I will see everyone and yourself after the Christmas.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.